To make the bracelet, we've got bead stringing wire. This is a bead stringing project. And so our bead stringing wire, we chose 19 strand bead stringing wire. It says that right here at the top of the container. And we chose a gold color because our findings are all gold. And we've got some beautiful materials to work with. We have this gorgeous crystal connector. And it's called a connector because it has a loop on either side here, one on each side, so that it connects two sides together. A beautiful little crystal connector. That's going to be the star of the show. And then to support it, it's going to connect two strands of this beautiful, rich olive rondelles. These rondelles are about 1 millimeter by 2 millimeters, and they have an AB finish on them, which makes that beautiful kind of oil slick color when the light hits it. And for findings, we have a lobster clasp and a jump ring, and we have 4 crimp beads. These are pretty small. And we have 4 crimp covers to cover those crimp beads. And then for tools, we have chain nose pliers and wire cutters, and we're also going to use a ruler. To get started making the bracelet, we want to plan how long we want the bracelet to be and where we want the connector to go in the center of the bracelet. So that's why I have my ruler here. I took a bracelet that I love to wear that's the right length for me, and it's about 6 3/4 inches long. And I'm going to use that as my measurement for how long I want my bracelet. And so I'm going to put the connector right there at about the center. I'm putting it about 3 inches on each side. So those are the pieces I need to string with my beads. One for each side, about 3 inches long. So I already cut a piece of bead stringing wire, and I cut it longer than I need. I only need 3 inches of beads, but I cut it about 7 inches so that I have some room to work with the ends. To attach the bead stringing wire to the connector on one end, I'm just going to feed it through the loop on the connector. So our connector has a loop on each side. I feed the bead stringing wire in, and then I'm going to fold it back on itself like that. And then I'm going to put a crimp bead on the other end of the wire. So I'm just going to hold that in my fingers, grab my little crimp bead. A crimp bead is a tiny little piece of metal. It's a little tube that's meant to be crushed, and I'm just going to feed it onto my wire here like that. It's so tiny. And then what we want to do is feed both ends of the wire into the crimp bead. So I just want to double check that they're both in there. I'm going to flip it over and look. Yes, both are in there. That's good. And so I slide it all the way up as close to the crystal connector as I can get. I'm just really kind of pushing it there. And then I'm going to crimp it. And you crimp it with chain nose pliers. And to crimp it, I just press it flat. And it's meant to be crushed, like I said. And what it does is it pinches that wire so that the wire doesn't move. And I can kind of test it and feel it. It's on there good. So that's going to be our connection to one side of the connector. And now I can trim this little extra tail using my wire cutters, and I can start feeding on some beads. This is the bead stringing part. This is fun. So beads come temporarily strung. This is on sort of a fishing line, and what they want you to do is cut the temporary strand and take the beads off of it, and now you can restring the beads onto good bead stringing wire, which is what this 19 strand is. Much stronger. You don't want to use fishing line. It's not strong enough to live up to the wear and tear of a piece of jewelry, especially a bracelet. You don't want to do all this work and then have it break. So now I'm going to feed my beads onto the wire, and I'm going to feed on enough beads until I have about 3 1/4 or 3 1/2 inches worth of beads on the wire. And you can feed them on one at a time like this, which is a little bit tricky because it's a little bit hard to find the circle, the hole in the bead. Or a faster way sometimes is to sort of fish the beads out of the palm of your hand. So what I like to do is take the beads and put some in the palm of my hand like that. And then I can use the end of the wire. It's stiff enough, this bead stringing wire, that I can kind of poke it into a bead like that. And it's just easier to find the circle or the hole in the bead that way. And it goes a lot faster. So I'm just going to keep on feeding the beads onto the wire until I have about 3¼ or 3½ inches worth of the bead string and wire beaded. So I think I've got just about enough beads on here. Let me try one more. And whoops, that one doesn't want to go on there. And the way I can tell if I have enough beads is I can just measure my bead stringing on the ruler. That's why we have the ruler here. So I had the circle between the 3 and the 4. I want to press all my beads down, and I've got them sliding over that folded back bead stringing wire. So it's tucked up inside these beads where we folded it back on itself. And then I'm just going to measure out, and I right at about 6 3/4, which is where I want to be. So now I'm going to put the jump ring on this end of the bracelet. And to do that, I'm going to connect it the way we did the connector. I'm going to put on the crimp bead right on the bead string and wire. And then I'm going to wrap the wire around my jump ring. I want to make sure that jump ring is closed. You might want to use a soldered closed jump ring for this, just so your wire doesn't slip through it. But I'm just going to make sure it's nice and closed. And I'm going to feed the bead string and wire through the jump ring, slide that down, and then I want to slide the bead string and wire end back through that crimp bead, just like we did before. So it's a tiny bead. I'm going to get a grip on it there. And I'm just going to feed the wire back through the crimp bead. And if I go through a couple of the beads, that's actually pretty good. And now I just want to pull the bead string and wire as tight as I can. And I think the easy way to do that is to use your chain nose pliers and hold on to the crimp bead. Hold it in one place there, and then pull the wire up against it like that. Now I want to press that crimp closed. That'll secure it onto the bead string and wire. Make sure it's on there, that's good. And then I'm going to trim that wire. Make sure you don't cut through your project. So when that side is done and it looks beautiful, now what we want to do is repeat the same process for the other side, but we'll put the lobster clasp on that side. So to do that, I have another piece of bead stringing wire that's about 7 inches long, and I'm going to put on a crimp bead and then slide the wire through my connector, the little loop on my circle connector here. And then I gave myself some slack so I have room to bend it back on itself. I'm going to feed that wire back through the crimp bead and then slide the crimp bead up close to the project, up close to our circle connector here. Move that out of the way. And then I want to crimp that closed. So I'm just going to hold it there and use my chain nose pliers to press that crimp bead closed. Just really want to mash it onto the wire so it gets a good bite into the wire there like that. And now I want to feed on my beads. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I like doing it this way where you put the beads in the palm of your hand. And I'm going to sort of fish these beads out one at a time until I have about 3 inches of beads on the wire. I'm just going to put a few more beads on and then measure how long the bracelet is. And so I wanted my bracelet about 6 3/4 to 7 inches long. So if I hold this end at that mark, I can stretch it out, and I see I'm right about at the 0 or close to it. The lobster clasp is going to add a little length also. So I think that's enough beading. You'll make it whatever length you want yours to be, but that's how long I'm going to do mine. So now I want to feed the lobster clasp onto the other end of the bead string and wire, and we're going to do that the way we did the jump ring. I'm going to put the crimp bead on first, and it slides down there against the beads. Then I'm going to slide on the lobster, and it goes down next to the crimp bead. All of this needs to be pressed together. You don't want any slack in there. Then I feed this end of the bead stringing wire back through that crimp bead. So it's very tiny work, but you just feed that in there. And like I did on the other side, I'm going to try to go through a couple of the beads. That way it hides the wire a little bit. So there it is. It went through 3 of the beads. And then I can pull that tight. I'm pressing all those beads together. I'm pressing the crimp down. I'm going to hold that with my fingers. You could hold it with your chain nose pliers and pull that nice and tight. Now I want to press that closed with my chain nose pliers. So I'm crimping that crimp bead. And then I'm going to trim this wire without cutting my project, of course. And we're almost done. Looking very beautiful. But we have these ugly crimps showing. And that's why we have these crimp bead covers. So a crimp bead cover is like a little donut with a bite taken out of it. And what it's made to do is it slides over your crimp. You just feed your little crimp bead into the crimp bead cover like that. And then you use your chain nose pliers to gently close that crimp bead cover over the crimp bead. So make sure the crimp bead's inside of it. I'm going to gently press that closed. I don't want to push it too hard because it's hollow. It could get a dent in it. But what that does is it looks like a gold bead there, and it covers up that crimp bead. It looks so much nicer. So I'm going to put one on each of my crimps. I have 4 crimps, so I have 4 crimp bead covers. So this one goes over that one. And I press that one closed. And you can get these crimp bead covers in silver if your work is silver. These two are kissing each other. There, I got them apart. You can get them in different colors of gold also. Let me move this over. Slide that little crimp bead inside there. And then press that one closed. Oh, it's wanting to get out. Stay in there. There we go. I'm going to press that closed gently. Looks like a bead there. Isn't that pretty? And then I'll do my last one here by my jump ring. If you're having trouble, you can use your tools here. You can hold the crimp bead cover with your chain nose pliers and then slide it in that way and press it closed. That may be a better way to do it. So now that looks like a bead, and all our crimp beads are covered. And now we have, just do my little lobster clasp here at the end. So there we have our very pretty crystal circle bracelet.